Podcast listeners, it has been thunderstorming and raining for the last couple of days, over 4 inches. It's not a record breaker, but it makes for tough beekeeping and bee monitoring. It's fall of the year, early fall, late summer. I'm sitting here wondering, as it rains, is this going to help me or hurt me? I got my good friend Jeff here. We want to talk for a few minutes about the whole process of the pre-summer/fall management. What am I doing? What should I be doing? Those are your questions, Jeff. Take it for just a minute.
Well, Jim, thanks for inviting me to the show today. Yeah, this is often an overlooked time of the year for many beekeepers, but it's become very important. It can seem like a boring time, but like I said, it should be very important before you start all your winter preps. But after summer, you have all of your honey off. What's a beekeeper to do? Go on vacation?
You took the word right out of my mouth, boring. Should you have used the word boring? And should I have used the word boring while we're setting up our podcast? This is a strange time, isn't it? There's nothing blooming all that much. Let's talk about it for a few minutes, if you will. Hi, I'm Jim too.
And I'm Jeff Ott from Beekeeping Today podcast.
And we're wondering if we can come up with some ideas on how to do something to help our bees in this late summer, early fall season that will help them survive the winter.
You are listening to Honey Bee Obscura, brought to you by Growing Planet Media, the folks behind Beekeeping Today podcast. Each week on Honey Bee Obscura, hosts Kim Flottam and Jim Tu explore the complexities, the beauty, the fun, and the challenges of managing honeybees in today's world. Get ready for an engaging discussion to delight and inform all beekeepers. If you're a long-timer or just starting out, sit back and enjoy the next several minutes as Kim and Jim explore all things honeybees.
Jeff, I really don't have a list. There is no standard list, is there? What do you do between seasons? Would basically be the topic. This is the very end of summer, the very beginning of fall. So we've got a lot of opportunities for doing good things for the fall season, and we've got some closing windows for doing things we should have done for the spring-summer season.
I'll use a phrase of our friend Kim Flottam. It depends, Jim.
Right. That's true. It does depend. Yeah, I mean, every time Kim says that, it usually does depend on a whole list of characters. Where are you as a beekeeper? There is no standard beekeeper, is there? To a large extent, the bees are standardized. You can almost set your clock by them, but beekeepers are all over the page. So it all depends, doesn't it, on where the beekeeper is and what's up.
Well, that's a big part of it. I think sitting here in Olympia, Washington, my end of summer, we're sitting here at the end of August, beginning of September of 2023. It's kind of a weird time of year. I mean, as a beekeeper, you're not building equipment. You're not planning expansions. You're really kind of winding down the year. You might have honey supers in the house or in the garage or in the honey house waiting to be extracted or waiting to go into storage.
Can I name this? Because I feel it too, Jeff. I was going to talk about, feed your bees and check the queen and did you knock down the mites. But more and more, I'm talking about my feelings. But I feel this late summer letdown. The spring season of 2023 is now gone. We know what's going to happen. We know how the story ended. Just a few months ago, I was all excited. This is going to be the year. This is going to be a major crop. Oh, my stars. This is going to be the best ever. No. It was just another bee year. So I'd like to name this the late summer letdown. The reality that this is not going to be my glorious year of all years, that this was just going to be a good year. I picked up 4 swarms for free. I probably lost 2 swarms, but I don't want to talk about that. The thing is, there'll be a little bump. I'll have a little emotional bump. When goldenrod starts up, fall aster comes in, and the bees begin to put up goldenrod, and you get that really delectable stink that comes from that goldenrod. That'll be one final hit before the bees and I go into the long dearth. So the point is, what should we be doing right now? You've used the word dull. I've used the word boring. But no, it's just the transitional change, the acceptance of the fact this spring season is over. one last tour off for the fall season, and then it's time for what? To get to the big dearth and then start it all over again next spring.
Yeah. I firmly believe, and I've only come to this belief through the harsh realities of life as a beekeeper, that this time of year, instead of being dull, we should be laser focused on knocking down the Varroa population. I mean, it should have started last month as soon as the honey supers were pulled, or if not before, now that we can use oxalic acid vaporization or oxalic acid with honey supers on to get the bees through the fall with the lowest Varroa population that we can. Because I've learned, and it's not just through reading, because maybe it's just me, but when I read or when I watch someone or I hear someone say, well, you know, you got to knock down Varroa, I'm sitting there thinking, well, not my bees. My bees are special.
They don't know how strong your bees are right now.
That's
Your
right.
bees really look good. You don't have to treat.
I am on top of that Varroa all year round, except for now. I don't need to. And I've learned harshly that that's not true. And that's through colonies that die or dead by December 1. And that's a harsh reality. And that's not just for me, the beekeeper. I mean, what about the poor bees who just got so weak that they perished before they had a chance to get through the winter? And to even embarrass myself even more, I cannot remember the last time I lost a hive due to freezing or starvation. Oh, I know all of my bees that I've lost during the winters have died because they've dwindled before the winter due to Varroa.
Either due to Varroa or the effects of Varroa. I completely agree with you. I've tried to think of ways to write articles where that beekeepers wouldn't murder me for, where I described how to take honey off a dead bee. I mean, they would die with their winter stores in place, and then the next spring, I've got 40 or 50 or 60 pounds of honey in deep frames on top of a dead colony.
Absolutely. That's a horrible realization to open that hive in January and find that cluster of dead bees and a full super, a deep super full of honey above them. And you know it's not due to any other disease such as, you know, American foul brood or anything else like that. It's, you know, you see the deformed wing, you see the small cluster, you don't see many bees. They're all on the bottom board. It's a sad, sad mess. So my belief is to take a mental shift. Instead of saying this is a boring time of year, this is the time for me to really get into gear and be laser focused on eliminating the Varroa where I need to. And that involves several steps that we can talk about.
I should be doing everything you're saying to do as we wander away from this pity me party we went through with our bees are all dying. You know, it's just staggering to realize that this big, beautiful colony that looks so powerful and voluminous growth and flight from the entrance can be dead by the first week in January from Varroa predation or the viral effects of it. So every year, I'm like Lucy in that football. Well, I know those colonies died last year, but look, this colony is really going to be okay. These two beehives are fine. Well, you think, well, Jim, you said that about those last year, but every year it's so enticing, you know, leave alone, let alone kind of thing. They look good. They're strong. Why would you go in and fix them? You know, all that spraying and oxalic acid and whatever you're going to be using, or you can just sit back and let the bees take care of it. Well, the bees don't take care of it most of the time.
Well, yeah, you're sitting there saying, you know, that $50 Varroa hygienic bee really did its job. Those bees are really doing strong, and they're the best. That's the best $50 I spent.
Yeah, the feelings just won't go away. That every year, something's different this year. These colonies are going to make it, and every year, then I'm taking honey off dead bees. So you just have to know that I agree with you that I've done some treatments. I should do more treatments. I should go out there just like you said. I'll do the best I can. But an admonishment to you and me both, we're supposed to be helping. So I like the way that you said laser. We need to be very precise. Don't go out there every day and torment your beehives and pull frames out and look for queens and check whatever. And somehow be laser focused. Do what you got to do. Be in, be out, and be gone. And then let the bees be bees. They don't I don't sense that they like us being in there. So we got to control varroa. You and I agree on that. You got to control varroa, or you got to have a bee replacement plan for next year. So is there a third option, Jeff? I guess the third option would be blind luck, that sometimes one of those colonies does survive, but otherwise you control varroa, or otherwise you have a bee replacement plan for next year. Probably packages or splits or whatever.
I think that's right.
All right. How about feed stuff? You and I both agree that in recent years, starving has not been an issue, but if one is producing honey and they took a lot of honey off, then maybe some colonies could be lightened up. When I fed fall feed sources, you use thick syrup, just as thick as you can make it, because you're feeding for food. You're not feeding for stimulation. So through the years, I think I've used most feeding devices, but I like top feeders. You can feed a lot, and it's convenient to feed. Can you agree with top feeders, or do you want division board feeders? Or
it depends, Jim. Being a Midwest beekeeper and Colorado beekeeper and moving into Washington, I like top feeders because I don't like breaking up the brood or getting down too far in the box on those days that I have a chance to feed. I just don't like doing that. So I like the top feeders because they're quick, simple, less disruptive to the colony. But I found after several winters here in the Pacific Northwest, you don't want all that moisture of wet syrup in the colony. Or at least this is what I believe I've learned. The beekeepers here in the wet Pacific Northwest, and I'm not talking about on the east side of the Cascades where it's much drier, it's much like Colorado. On the west side where you get all the rain, there's just too much moisture in the air for the bees to get rid of all of that, to evaporate all the water that's in that wet syrup. So you either have to have a super good way of helping the bees manage all that moisture in the colonies, or not feed liquid syrup. And most of the beekeepers around here are using fondant and fondant boards or candy boards that make use of the natural metabolism moisture of the winter cluster to wet and moisten the fondant or the candy board so the bees can get to it. Winters were hard the first couple of years of keeping bees here because I was in the mentality, okay, well, I'll just keep adding sugar syrup to the colonies. And every year I'd say, why the heck are all of my bees moldy? Why is it so wet in this hive? I attribute it to all the sugar syrup I fed.
Well, that's really, really interesting. Here in the Midwest where I am, the humidity is high, but we have our days when it's low and we have our days when it's high. And I've never thought about that. But I have fed, and I do know commercial beekeepers across the country years ago would just feed dry sugar. Pour it on the inner cover, pour it inside the colony. The bees will find it. It was rough and ready. You know, I was listening to you talk about the moisture issue, and I really hadn't thought about that. Here in the Midwest, we have humid days and we have dry days. So I can still use them, but I've fed dry sugar. And I know commercial beekeepers who just fed granulated sugar. I wonder if you could do that. I'm going to give you a minute to talk about it while we take a short break and hear from our sponsor.
At Better Bee, we know you have many options for where you choose to get your wooden hive boxes and frames. We work closely with our sister company, Humble Abodes, in Maine, to bring you high-quality woodenware featuring tight-fit assembly available in a variety of great options to meet your needs. So whether you choose select, commercial, or budget-grade boxes or frames, you can count on quality milling of locally sourced eastern white pine. Shop all woodenware at betterbee.com.
Have you considered feeding dry sugar? If the humidity is that high, the sugar would be gummy anyway.
I know some beekeepers who do use dry sugar on like an adapted rim board with access to it, as opposed to I've seen videos or books where they sprinkle the sugar on the top bars, and I think that's a mess. I think you're just attracting varmints that way, but I've not fed dry sugar, and I can't put a finger on it, but something about that does not appeal to me, although it would be a lot simpler than making candy boards or dealing with fondant or even buying fondant.
You know, there's only a fine line between efficient beekeeping and messy beekeeping. It's a very fine line. When are you efficient and when am I just sloppy?
I think it's more like a very big gray area.
I know exactly what you're talking about. To go out and dump 3 pounds of sugar on a rim board and think you've done your bees a good service. But alternatively, if the bees take it, and bee colonies' personalities are different. Some colonies will go up and line up and take that granulated sugar like chickens in a feeder. And other bees sometimes actually throw part of it out, carry it out and dump it. And, well, how about the queen, Jeff? I'm going to say boldly that the queen you got is the queen you're stuck with. At this time of the year, if you've got a queen that you really don't care for, it's just too late to put another $35, $45 queen in a hive and give her a chance to become established, get a brood nest, and get through the winter. So shoot a hole in that, I always say.
I don't think I will even attempt. I am very hesitant to requeen in the fall. I know that's a practice for many beekeepers, but I imagine that depending on the part of the country you're in, winters are different and may be successful. But anywhere here and wherever I've kept bees, I would just wish that colony good luck. If they have a queen, that they make it through the winter. If she dies during the winter, there's still time. You're not going to lose necessarily the colony through the winter because the queen dies, but that gives you time in the spring, early spring, late winter to requeen at that point or as soon as you can. In an emergency situation, if she was just pathetic, well, it's hard to tell this time of year because the queens aren't laying that much anyway. So if she was to die, if you accidentally pinch her or roll her in between frames, and I've never done that.
Oh, yeah, right. I've never stepped on my own queen.
No. Yeah, who has? I mean, really, maybe if it was a smaller colony, maybe combine it with another colony, or in the worst case, maybe if I had a frame, had eggs or very, very, day-old larva, maybe put that into that. But even then, she's not going to mate. So, if you lose a queen this time of year, I think you're SOL. Best bet is to combine that colony, and I definitely would not try requeening.
Well, we're on board with that. No controversy, no argument. Take your losses in the fall, right? Because just like you say, cut your losses. And it's hard to, all my life, numbers were important. And then even in my old age now, I consider numbers, but it used to be, I want 100 hives. I want 500 hives. How many hives do you have? I have 48. How many hives do you have? I've got 16. Well, I'm a much better beekeeper than you then. So we all give these numerical ranks, but there's no glory in going into winter with weak colonies just for a colony count, for a hive count. You combine them, get those colonies through as strong as possible, and the next spring, go out there and torment your beehives and split them out again. So the numbers are irrelevant compared to overwintering success.
Yeah, and I think that's what this time of year is best for, is prepping your bees to be the strongest they can going into the winter so they can come out of the winter at the highest population possible so you can have a successful next year.
This is our opening. This is our portal for the last hurrah of this season. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime, but this is the doldrums of summer getting ready for the next big final hurrah. Would you categorize it that way?
Yeah, I would, and take advantage of that down period to really make the most to help your bees. And I'm just speaking from my own personal experience. Don't wait till October to try to get your bees ready for winter because you're too late.
I'm going to leave it that way. I can't word it any better. Until Kim's back, or till you and I talk again, I hope everybody has a good fall flow and bees are healthy and you and I are both happy the next time we get together.
It's going to be a good fall. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, I wouldn't miss it. Enjoy talking to you.